The legacy of Methuselah, divine patience and the call to endurance. Genesis chapter 5 verses 25 to 32. Noah's line begins, hope in the midst of decline. Welcome to Christ for life. As we reach the final verses of Genesis chapter 5, a profound shift occurs. We continue tracing Adam's genealogy through Seth, but now we arrive at a name destined to change history, Noah. There is a sacred gravity in these verses, weighed with their legacy. Time itself slows, every year echoing with hidden prayers, exhaustion, and aching expectancy. Within a few sentences, the narrative holds centuries of stifled longing, generational wounds, and the promise of world-shaking renewal. Everything here is dense with significance for your story, your lineage, and your pursuit of God. Today, in the first part of our 3-video series on Genesis chapter 5 verse 25-32, we will focus on the profound legacy of Methuselah, a figure whose extraordinary life speaks volumes about God's patience and our own call to endurance. Hear now, the sacred words from Genesis chapter 5 verses 25 to 32. Let us open our hearts to the Spirit's illumination, as we uncover the layers of grace, patience, and persistent hope embedded in this ancient text. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech. Methuselah walked with God after he fathered Lamech 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son and called his name Noah, saying, Out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands. Lamech lived after he fathered Noah 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. 1 After Noah was 500 years old, Noah fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The legacy of Methuselah, the silent witness of endurance and unfathomable patience. As we return to the Genesis chapter 5 narrative, after the magnificent departure of Enoch, the familiar refrain reasserts itself, yet with a striking peculiarity. We encounter Methuselah, son of Enoch. He lived for an astounding 969 years, making him the longest-lived person recorded in the entire Bible. His life stands as a testament, not just to antediluvian longevity, but to a profound aspect of God's character, his immense patience and long-suffering. His life becomes a silent witness to God's patience, leaving only his presence as a sign. His name, Methuselah, has been widely interpreted by ancient traditions as, when he dies, it will be sent, or, his death brings judgment, directly hinting that judgment waits until his death, the coming cataclysm of the flood that inevitably follows his passing. His extraordinary longevity is seen across diverse traditions as a profound symbol of God's patience, allowing humanity abundant, prolonged time for repentance before the judgment. His longevity is the calendar of divine forbearance, each year a chance for repentance and mercy. Consider the stark contrast between Enoch and his son, Methuselah. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. He transcended death. But Methuselah, despite being Enoch's direct descendant and living the longest, ultimately died. This reminds us that while God offers intimate relationship and transfiguration, he also maintains his cosmic order. Even the most blessed lineages still face the consequence of the fall. Yet, even in death, Methuselah's life delivered a profound message. The delay of judgment is a divine act of mercy, a vast window of opportunity for salvation. The profound psychological impact of Methuselah's story cannot be overstated. Imagine living 969 years, nearly a millennium of human experience, watching civilizations rise and fall, seeing hundreds of generations born and buried. He carried the living memory of his father Enoch's miraculous translation while witnessing humanity's progressive moral decay into profound wickedness. Methuselah becomes a bridge between two worlds, the world that knew God intimately and the world that would forget him almost entirely. The Hebrew tradition teaches that Methuselah's extraordinary longevity was an act of divine mercy. God extended his life not merely as a blessing to him, but as a grace period for humanity. Every year that Methuselah lived was another year that God's judgment was held back, another opportunity for repentance, another demonstration of divine patience. Saint John Chrysostom reflected on this, saying, "In Methuselah's extended years, we see the heart of God, reluctant to judge, eager to save, patient beyond human comprehension." In Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant commentary, Methuselah becomes a living embodiment of slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, showing that every day of his endurance was a day saturated with God's mercy. Church fathers and mystics see Methuselah as the embodiment of patient endurance. This offers profound healing for those who struggle with understanding God's justice and mercy. Perhaps you've wondered how a loving God could allow suffering, how a just God could delay justice, how a perfect God could tolerate imperfection. Methuselah's lifespan reveals that divine justice is always tempered by divine mercy, that God's desire to save consistently outweighs his need to judge. Long seasons of waiting, unanswered prayers, and hidden faith are never wasted but hold the world in God's mercy. Let us dive deeper into the psychological and spiritual significance of longevity in these ancient generations. Modern science tells us that the human brain continues forming new neural pathways throughout life, a phenomenon called neuroplasticity. Imagine what 969 years of accumulated wisdom, experience, and spiritual insight could produce in a human consciousness fully surrendered to God. The Church Fathers saw in these extended lifespans not just historical facts but spiritual symbols. Saint Augustine taught that the long lives of the antediluvian patriarchs represented humanity's original design, minds and bodies capable of extraordinary growth, hearts designed for centuries of expanding love, souls created for ever-deepening relationships with the eternal God. This speaks to the deepest wound in human psychology: the fear of mortality, the anxiety about limited time, the pressure to accomplish everything in our brief span of years. Methuselah's story whispers to these fears: you were created for more than you can imagine. Your soul's capacity for growth, love, and communion with God extends far beyond the boundaries of this earthly life. The Jewish mystical tradition teaches that Methuselah spent his extraordinary years not in idle pursuits but in spiritual preparation, preparing humanity for the coming judgment while simultaneously preparing his own soul for eternity. The Talmud records that he was a great teacher and prophet, using his accumulated wisdom to call people back to the God his father Enoch had walked with so intimately. Think about the profound loneliness Methuselah must have experienced. Everyone he had ever known in his youth, friends, siblings, cousins, all died centuries before he did. He watched his great-great-great-grandchildren grow old and die while he remained. Yet he continued to live, continued to hope, continued to trust in God's timing. He becomes the archetype for anyone who inhabits the long, unremarkable stretches of life, carrying wounds and memories, simply enduring, holding open the possibility of restoration. This offers healing for those experiencing profound loneliness or feeling like they've outlived their purpose. Perhaps you feel like everyone from your generation is gone, like you no longer fit in the world around you, like you're living in exile from a better time. Methuselah's example suggests that extended seasons of life, even difficult ones, serve divine purposes we may not immediately understand. Are you in a long season of waiting, feeling endless, overlooked, or futile? Methuselah's witness says the world may be waiting on your steady, hidden faith. Your presence might be the shield that keeps the flood at bay, the gap where God's mercy lingers. The early Christian writer Hippolytus taught that Methuselah's longevity made him a living library of human history. He carried within his memory the stories of Adam and Eve, the tragedy of Cain and Abel, the hope of Seth's lineage, the glory of Enoch's translation. In a world without written records, he became the repository of divine revelation. This transforms how we understand the purpose of extended seasons in our own lives. Perhaps your long experience of struggle has made you a repository of hard-won wisdom. Perhaps your years of waiting have developed in you a depth of patience that others desperately need to witness. Perhaps your survival through difficulties has equipped you to guide others through similar valleys. But notice something profound in the text. Altogether, Methuselah lived a total of 969 years, and then he died. After nearly a millennium of life, death still came. The Hebrew, va yamat, and he died, appears here with devastating finality. Even the longest human life ends in the same place as the shortest. Longevity, wisdom, experience, none of these can ultimately defeat the enemy that entered through Adam's sin. Yet this apparent tragedy becomes the setup for humanity's greatest rescue. Traditional chronologies suggest that Methuselah died in the very year of the flood, his death serving as the final signal that God's patience had reached its limit and his judgment could no longer be delayed. The man whose life had stayed God's hand in mercy became, through his death, the final witness to God's heart of justice. The psychological implications are staggering. How many of us live with the unconscious assumption that if we could just have more time, we could fix everything, heal all relationships, accomplish all dreams, resolve all conflicts? Methuselah's story suggests that time alone, even centuries of it, cannot solve the fundamental problem of human nature separated from God. This offers both sobering reality and liberating grace. The sobering reality: no amount of human effort, wisdom, or longevity can bridge the gap between sinful humanity and holy God. The liberating grace: what human effort cannot accomplish, divine intervention can achieve instantly through relationship with Christ. For those grappling with God's timing, or feeling impatient in seasons of waiting, Methuselah's life offers a potent truth. God's delays are not his denials, but invitations to deeper repentance, growth, and preparation. The long stretches of waiting are often seasons where God labors most for your inner healing and the healing of those you love. In our next video, part 2 of this series, we will delve into the powerful story of Lamech, his lament, and the profound prophecy hidden in his naming of Noah. Join us as we continue to uncover the rich layers of Genesis chapter 5.